Hi everybody, my name's Lydia. I'm a PSHE Association Subject Specialist, and welcome to the first episode of the PSHE Association's Ask a Subject Specialist video series, which I and other members of our Subject Specialist team will be answering questions on PSHE sent in by our members. So last week we asked you to send in one question on any aspect of PSHE that you'd like to know more about. We received lots of really interesting questions, lots of unique ones. And so that we're going to be able to go into a little bit more depth today, we'll be taking a look at just a few of those questions, starting with the ones that came up most often, but we'll also be answering some quick fire questions at the end of the session. If we don't get around to your question today, don't worry, as we'll be answering some more in upcoming episodes. If you have any pressing questions or concerns, you're always welcome to contact us directly via info@psheassociation.org.uk. So in today's episode, we'll be covering assessment, delivering RSE and Health Education in line with the statutory changes, and also safely teaching PSHE remotely. So let's get started with our first question. So the first question is, what's the best way to assess or give feedback to children on the learning they're completing remotely in PSHE? Of course, teaching and learning has changed a lot since remote learning became the norm. Although in a classroom-based lesson, you'd normally be able to gather a sense of where pupils are through AFL, for example, through questioning, peer assessment or self-assessment, it is still possible to incorporate other aspects of assessment into remote learning for pupils at home. Assessment is, of course, a vital part of PSHE education, as it provides vital opportunities for pupils to reflect on their learning. It increases pupil motivation. It also raises pupils' awareness of their own development, which in turn will illustrate the value of their learning. It allows you as a teacher to be confident that the learning has taken place. And it's also a way for you to demonstrate your pupils' progress and identify any future needs that your pupils may have. So pupils' personal reflection on their learning in PSHE is a really important part of the assessment process and can also be achieved in the home learning environment or remotely. So asking pupils to carry out a baseline assessment before completing any new learning will mean you can still see their starting points. The format could be similar to a baseline assessment carried out in a classroom environment or adapted slightly for completion by individual pupils. Examples that could work really well remotely are draw and write activities, mind maps or spidergrams, an activity called Explain to an Alien, or simple quizzes. So I'm going to take you through a couple of examples now. So here we have a draw and write baseline assessment, which was completed by a Key Stage 2 pupil, and they were asked to draw a healthy person and write around the picture all the things that keep them healthy. And this gives the teacher an idea of knowledge and skills and also the attitudes around health. In the next example, the mind map, this student, I think a Key Stage 3 student, was asked to mind map their thoughts and ideas about what someone can do to keep their teeth and mouth healthy. This example is Explain to an Alien. So Key Stage 1 activity that's taken from our mental health and emotional wellbeing lesson plans. In this activity, the children are introduced to Maz, who's an alien, and they're asked to tell Maz all about feelings and what you would say and talk about. Another simple way of carrying out a baseline assessment is to do a quiz, which enables the teacher to find out pupils' knowledge about topics in PSHE. So it's important that pupils have opportunities to demonstrate the progress that they've made from their starting point assessed in the baseline activity. And the simplest and often the most effective way of demonstrating this progress is by revisiting that original baseline activity. These examples lend themselves well to a revisit, with pupils using a different colour, add to their baseline activity and make any changes or add in any ideas based on what they've learned in that lesson or series of lessons. In terms of recording their assessments, these chosen examples are simple enough to be carried out just using a piece of paper and a pencil. And pupils could be given instructions on how to either attach their assessments via email or into the school app, or however your school has been collecting pupils' work during the school closures. Alternatively, pupils could be asked to keep their assessments for evidence gathering back in school. If you'd like further support with assessment, we've produced an assessment guide, which you can find a link to below. Okay, so question number 2 is, how are you planning to support PSHE leaders to deliver RSE and health education from September? So currently the statutory changes are still due to come into place in September 2020. However, we understand that the Department for Education are giving full consideration to the implications of school closures on schools' ability to prepare for statutory status by this time. So we'll keep you informed of any developments that we have. At the current time, we are advising you to continue to prepare for statutory status of relationships education, of RSE and health education in September. And our aim is to provide the necessary support to you to ensure you feel confident in delivering all aspects of PSHE to a high standard. With that in mind, we have created a statutory changes page on our website, and it has a tools for the job section. And this includes a variety of resources to help you, including a preparing for RSE leads pack and a roadmap to statutory status. These documents support schools with their journey towards September 2020 and lay out all the aspects that you've probably been thinking about for some time now. We know some schools may already be a long way on this journey, but there still may be elements that you need to put in place or you're working on before the start of the next school year. So the PSHE leads pack on the left will support you to assess the needs of your pupils, help you to review your current RSE policy or to write one from scratch, also support you to review and update your current curriculum, help you to equip and support your staff, to monitor and evaluate your approach in PSHE, and communicate to your school community, including parents. Of course, you may have completed lots of these steps, as I said, or still have some to do. But now might be a great time to seize the opportunity to develop your planning further. Although, of course, some steps, such as training your staff, might be harder to achieve during the period of school closures. In addition, our newly updated programme of study supports you to integrate the new statutory content into your broader PSHE programme. The statutory guidance is comprehensively covered by the learning opportunities for each key stage across the core themes: health and well-being, relationships, and living in the wider world. This is then further broken down by our programme builders, which provide examples of curriculum frameworks setting out what pupils could be taught in each year group, in each half term, or across the year, so that it fully covers the programme of study and the new statutory content. These also link out to existing quality assured resources and provide suggested learning objectives for each lesson. Lots of you also ask questions about engaging with parents when it comes to RSE. Of course, engagement with parents at the moment might be quite challenging. We recognise that many schools have been planning to have the majority of their consultation activities in the summer term, which is now less possible due to lockdown and school closures. But many of the approaches that you would usually take to the consultation process can also be done by communicating with your parent community remotely. For example, via the school website, sharing a draft RSE policy, or for a newsletter for parents about the RSE changes. Some of you may feel confident to conduct online surveys or email Q&A option for parents who would like to know more. But of course, any face-to-face contact that may have been planned will now have to be postponed until the autumn term or beyond. Remember that parental engagement can take many forms and it should be an ongoing process. There's no expectation to complete all parental engagement before the start of September. You may find some useful advice in these two documents. So we have the PSHE Association Guide to Parental Engagement on the left here, which discusses how to positively communicate with parents about statutory relationships education, as well as giving an overview of statutory requirements and regarding withdrawal of pupils from sex education. The document on the right is the Parental Engagement on Relationships Education Guidance. The DfE also published a Parental Engagement Guidance for Schools in October 2019. It includes advice, tips and case studies on effective parental engagement, including some methods that may be suitable to be used remotely. Okay, so our next question is, what areas can we safely teach or explore through online lessons? So many of you have been asking about suitable topics for remote learning in PSHE. For example, I know lots of primary schools were planning to deliver their RSE lessons, all those on puberty, in the summer term, and may now be concerned about how to do this appropriately given school closures. This is a particular concern because it is essential and time-dependent learning, as we know that pupils need to learn about puberty before they experience it themselves. So I wanted to start by flagging up our coronavirus hub. You may have already seen that we have produced a range of guidance, including what topics are suitable for home learning, how to decide what PSHE topics can be delivered at home, adapting lessons for home learning, and so on. For more details on this, we also have a pre-recorded webinar which explores how to best set up home learning. You might have also seen that for members, we've created home learning packs on sleep, dental health, and mental health and wellbeing. We'll continue to upload these on a weekly basis, and we'll soon include topics such as sharing information safely online and special people. We'll also be developing a home learning pack on puberty for Key Stage 2 pupils, which will be available in the coming weeks. We have discussed this a lot as a team. We know that many of you will be doing this at different stages, for example, with Year 5, Year 6 or Year 4. We feel it is really important that pupils don't miss out on this learning and that they get this before they experience the onset of puberty, in particular around menstruation, as it can be really concerning for a young person who's not received learning about this. So keep an eye out for that in the near future. But in general, before you decide whether to set particular aspects of relationships or sex education for home learning, we'd recommend considering the following questions. Might the topic be difficult for some people to discuss or learn about in the home environment? Will this topic encourage or make it more likely that people will go onto inappropriate, potentially harmful websites as a result of this lesson or activity? Might any of the content cause distress or anxiety to pupils? Might any content re-traumatise a pupil with personal experience of the topic? Does the lesson or activity provide sufficient signposting to support currently available to pupils should they wish to discuss the topic further, make a disclosure, or get advice and help? In recent weeks, members have asked us about home learning on topics such as consent, pornography, sexting, and healthy relationships, for example. So if we have a think about some of those. So sexting and pornography would almost certainly be best taught within the safety of the classroom environment, as they are sensitive for many and could very well cause anxiety and distress, especially for those young people with negative personal experiences. There is also the risk of young people carrying out website searches, which may well include inappropriate or harmful content. So these are areas definitely best avoided as home learning options. Discussing or exploring healthy relationships, on the other hand, would most likely be suitable for home learning, as long as the questions above were considered around any planned activities. You can find more guidance on adapting lessons for home learning and a coronavirus hub. And of course, parents also have the right to withdraw their children in relation to sex education. So this added complexity will mean that for many schools, it is better to wait until schools reopen, deliver this context in a safe learning environment. Okay, and now we just have time for some quick fire questions. So there are a few I can answer a bit more briefly that came in for our members. Those are, first one is, where can I find a template or sample of an RSE policy to help me write one for my school? So we produced a guide to writing an RSE policy, which will help you to write a new policy or update an existing one, referring to the DfE statutory guidance on relationship education, on RSE and health education as well. We also have a template for writing a PSHE policy too. Both of these can be found on a resource search by typing policy into the keyword section. Next question. Should each child have their own PSHE book? In general, our advice will be that yes, pupils should have a PSHE book. This helps to keep all of their assessments and PSHE work in one place, and to give it the same status as other subjects in school by helping to record and value that pupils' work. Having said that, there isn't an exact formula to approach recording in PSHE, and this may be different depending on your type of setting or what key stage you teach. So, for example, in early years in PSHE lessons for Key Stage 1, individual recording may not be required, and so using individual books could seem unnecessary. However, in Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3 and 4, it may be that pupils have more opportunity to record, so individual books could be more relevant. It is worth noting that the DfE guidance for relationships and health education does guide schools to have the same high expectations for the quality of pupils' work in these subjects as in other curriculum areas. So as long as expectations for recording are high across the school, do what works for your pupils. This might be floor books, which is a whole class book for pupils' work across the school, or a mix of floor books and individual recording, or a folder to keep particular pieces of work or baseline and endpoint assessments in Key Stage 3 and 4. So our next question is, how can I best help my teenage pupils understand the importance of sleep, going to bed at a sensible time and getting enough sleep? So we produced a home learning pack based on our classroom-based lessons, the sleep factor, which will help your pupils understand the importance of quality of sleep. The Key Stage 3 lessons help students to independently analyse the benefits of sleep and examine the strategies for getting better sleep. And the Key Stage 4 lesson supports them to consider the consequences of poor sleep habits and analyse those behaviours that can help them manage sleep difficulties. You'll be able to find these on our coronavirus hub, and we've received some really positive feedback about their impact so far. Okay, next question is, at present we teach puberty in Year 5. I see in both your long-term programmes it is taught in Year 4. I can see this as being a contentious issue for many parents. What reasoning would you give for this change on our part? So the NHS advice states that puberty can begin as early as 8 for girls and 9 for boys. And Year 5 is therefore the latest time in the school curriculum when this should be addressed. So Year 4 is preferable. Teaching about puberty before children experience it is essential to ensure that pupils' physical, emotional, and learning needs are met and they have the correct information about how to take care of their bodies and keep themselves safe. It would also be useful to communicate to parents that teaching about puberty at this stage is also part of safeguarding. Okay, so our last question in the quickfire round is, do you think that gaming and problem gambling will be covered more frequently by PSHE talks and blogs? So we've just completed a really interesting project with Gamble Aware, looking into problem gambling and gaming in young people and how to teach this safely. You might have seen that we released a guidance document called How to Address Gambling Through PSHE Education, as well as a podcast and lesson plans for Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 4. You can find all these resources on our Gambling Hub, which is on our website at psheassociation.org.uk/gambling. So thanks for joining us. We hope you found this helpful. Please continue to submit your questions by contacting us at info@psheassociation.org.uk with the subject line, Ask a Subject Specialist, and we'll continue to upload these FAQ webinars regularly. Please also do keep checking back on the hub for new releases. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.